City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of your number one talk show, City Talks, with Reuben Abati, on your number one lifestyle station, City 1051 FM. On this show, we talk about stories of political and human interest that affect us as citizens of Nigeria and as members of a global human community. Today, we'll be discussing a number of interesting subjects. The Ibori loot, what has become known as the Ibori loot, fuel price hike, and the politics around that, and other matters of national interest. And to guide us through this, we have a very special guest. It is indeed with great pleasure to have with us here today Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and human rights activist. Mr. Femi Falana, SAN, was born on the 20th of May 1958. He is a graduate of the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Osun State. He is a principal partner at Falana and Falana Chambers, which he runs with his wife, Femi Falana, who is also a women's rights activist. Mr. Falana served as national chairman of the National Conscience Party in 2011. He and his wife are blessed with 3 children, including Faz, the popular Nigerian rapper, lawyer, online comedian, and actor. Falana belongs to many professional bodies, including West African Bar Association, Nigerian Bar Association, Pan-African Lawyers Union, and the International Bar Association. Well, as you can see, that introduction today is very brief because Femi Falana, SAN, needs no introduction in the real sense of it. He's someone who is known to everyone in Nigeria in every sphere. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can call us on 0700 1051 1051, or you can leave comments on WhatsApp 09099164403, and on our social media accounts at CT1051 on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. Mr. Femi Falana, SAN, thank you very much for joining us on City Talks with Reuben Abati. You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, quickly, you're on record as having said that the 4.2 million that was recently promised as something to be returned from the United Kingdom to Nigeria, recovered from former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, who had a case in the United Kingdom, should be returned to Delta State. Contrary to the federal government's position that this is money that should go to the federal government, with the Attorney General and Minister of Justice saying that this is in line with an existing framework for treating matters like this. Hello, Mr. Falana. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I hear you.
Yes. So, I mean, is the federal government right or wrong? Because the attorney... Yeah, please go ahead.
The federal government is palpably wrong. Very, very wrong, in the sense that the position of the federal government is not anchored in any provision of the law, other than an agreement signed by the Attorney General and his counterpart in the United Kingdom. In the first place, as far as the Constitution is concerned, any agreement or treaty or convention, any agreement signed between Nigeria and another country will have to be domesticated, will have to be enacted into law by the National Assembly. That's number one. Number two, the fund in question does not belong to the federal government. In the case in the United Kingdom, it was proved that this money left the coffers of the Delta State government. And so if the fund is going to be returned, having been confiscated after a criminal trial, it has to return to source. And again, in this particular instance, we have a precedent, or in fact, 2 precedents. In the case of Plateau State, when Governor Dariye was caught with some fund in the United Kingdom, the fund, when repatriated, was paid into the account of Plateau State government. Ditto for Bayelsa State with respect to the £1 million found in the apartment of the late governor, dear prayer, Alamasia. So there is no way, there can be no justification for treating the Ibori loot differently, because under our constitution, any form of discrimination has been prohibited. So, as I said somewhere, equals have to be treated equally. So there is no way the government can say, in the case of Ibori, oh, the money will be used to construct road in Kano or Ibadan, or to complete the second Niger bridge. Whereas nobody is talking of Delta State, it's even insensitive to adopt that kind of action. But as I said, the agreement in the United Kingdom will have to be subject to the Constitution of Nigeria. Where did the money, where was the money lost? And under international law, the federal government's position cannot be justified.
Well, the position of the Attorney General of the Federation is that, one, the law that has been violated is a federal law. Two, that the parties involved in the negotiation are sovereigns, nationals, not subnationals. And that three, the federal government is a victim. How is the federal government a victim?
Well, in the first place, the case instituted against Governor Ibori in Nigeria was dismissed. The efforts of the EFCC under Malam Nuribadu were frustrated by the federal government. And so, Governor Ibori, without a trial, was purportedly discharged and acquitted. It was after that fiasco that the EFCC contacted its counterpart, the Metropolitan Police in the United Kingdom, to say, this guy is too big to be caged by the Nigerian system. What can we do together? It was the EFCC that provided the entire evidence. As a matter of fact, the then Attorney General, Chief Mike Anduaka SAN, frustrated the trial under the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty between Nigeria and the United Kingdom. Requested documents were to be transferred. The United Kingdom requested for certain documents to aid the trial. Chief Mike Anduaka, on behalf of the Yaradua regime, refused to make them available. In fact, there was a motion whereby some of the documents obtained by the EFCC were rejected by by the court in England, on the ground that they did not come from proper custody. So if the federal government had frustrated the trial, and in spite of the objection and the collusion between the federal government and the defendants, judgment was obtained, money has been seized, the federal government lacks the moral or the legal right to insist on claiming the money. And in any case, Section 7 of the Interpretation Act does not apply, because this money has ownership. And we are saying this money left the coffers of Delta State government. And if it's going to be returned, it must be returned to source by virtue of Article 35 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which is that the victims of the corrupt practices shall be compensated. The federal government is not the victim. The victims are the people of Delta State.
Well, Mr. Falana, you will recall that there was once a case, EFCC versus, I think, Delta State government, and there was yet another case in which, at that time, when the Ibori case started, the Delta State government was reportedly said no money was missing, and that Delta State had not lost any money. And indeed, these same people of Delta State, when James Ibori returned in 2017, there was a big welcome party for him in his Ogara community. So people now say, well, if Delta State people and the government are insisting that nobody stole their money, do they also have a moral basis to claim this £4.2 million?
Well, again, those issues are totally irrelevant. In the case of Governor alarms. Governor Alamesia, when he escaped from the United Kingdom and arrived Bayelsa State, he was given a heroic welcome. So these things are normal in a country where the question of probity has not really been installed. But coming to the current situation, I have just told you how the federal government frustrated the trial. And if the federal government had succeeded, Chief James Ibori would not have been convicted in the United Kingdom. But as far as the case you mentioned, and that is the case of EFCC, Federal Republic of Nigeria, against Chief James Ibori, I'm talking of the conviction proceeding. That was when Malam Nur Ribadu got the EFCC to apply to have his $15 million bribe given to him, forfeited to the federal government. It was on that occasion that the Delta State government, headed by Governor Uduahem, a cousin of Chief James Ibori, told the court that the money was not lost. And that statement was limited to the $15 million bribe. It did not cover all funds illegally removed from the coffers of Delta State. And in any case, with respect to the proceedings in England, the Delta State government never said that the money confiscated in England did not belong to Delta State government. And by the way, Reuben, General Muhammadu Buhari had repeatedly maintained that the late General Sani Abacha never stole a dime from the coffers of Nigeria. But the same government, headed by President Muhammadu Buhari, now receives regularly the remaining loot of Abacha. So why don't we say, go to the United Nations, since the leadership in Nigeria had once said that Abacha never stole a dime?
Okay, I get the argument. But again, some people have suggested that at the end of the day, maybe the federal government should take a percentage of what has been returned, maybe about 20%, and then give Delta State government the balance. Would that be a way to resolve the matter, or you advise the Delta State government to go to court?
There is no basis for that. It is the British government that is deducting what it has spent on prosecution of the case. It has nothing to do with the federal government. The federal government did not take part in the prosecution. As a matter of fact, tried to frustrate the prosecution. The federal government did not take part in the confiscation proceeding. All the federal government has done now is to rush to the UK and sign an agreement that the money be returned to Nigeria. So the federal government has not performed its own duty under the law. But as far as Article 35 of the United Nations Convention is concerned, and that convention has been signed by both the United Kingdom and Nigeria, this money has to go to the victims. And by the way, contrary to what some senior lawyers have said, the British government is not releasing this money out of its own generosity. Secondly, it was not the law of Nigeria that was involved. Chief James Ibori breached the British law, not Nigerian law. In the case of Nigeria, he was freed. He was discharged and acquitted by a court that never tried him. So we're not dealing with the laws of Nigeria. We are dealing with the laws of the United Kingdom and the United Nations Convention Against Corruption.
Well, let's move on to another issue. Yesterday, Lagos was, thrown into some confusion as we found queues at various petrol stations on the basis of a pricing template that was said to have been released by the Petroleum Pricing and Regulatory Agency earlier in the day, recommending a pump price of between 209 naira to 212 naira per liter at the fuel stations. And immediately, the fuel station owners adjusted their own meters. But then again, by yesterday evening, the Minister of State had come around to say the president was not aware of what had been done and that, in fact, the government had not increased the pump price of fuel. NNPC also disowned the process. However, in March, April, the same Minister of State for Petroleum, Timi Presiva, was the one who informed the country that market forces henceforth will now determine the pump price of fuel. Where are we with this? I mean, what does government need to do? Because it seems that the government is just as confused as the people.
The government is swimming in a sea of confusion. And the confusion is going to be further compounded very soon because the government has lost total control of the management of the economy. Right now, the economy is run by the central bank. The central bank has left banking. It's now either fixing, releasing money to national theater or giving money for a Greek or whatever. So the central bank has left banking completely, and the central bank only takes detections from the IMF and the World Bank. The IMF and the World Bank have insisted that the price of fuel in Nigeria be dictated by the so-called or rather invisible market forces. And that is the position of the government. So you cannot say on the one hand, the market forces will determine the prices of petroleum products, while on the other hand, you are saying, oh, we are fixing the prices. So they are all confused, But it's left for the Nigerian people to react decisively and ensure that the laws of our country are obeyed by virtue of Section 6 of the Petroleum Act. Up to now, that law has not been amended. The power to fix the prices of petroleum products is vested in the Minister of Petroleum Resources. In this case, President Muhammadu Buhari is the Minister of Petroleum Resources. So if he's not aware, some action must take place. If the president is not aware, he must proceed to deal with the officers that caused the problem. It's not enough to apologize. If the government is convinced that the PPPRA management had no power to exercise or to make the announcement or to fix the soap template, the government must take decisive action to show Nigeria that somebody is in control. But so far, we haven't seen any indication. And for me, all the government is saying, going by the NNPC, is that we have not decided to increase the price of petroleum products in March 2021. That does not mean that the price has come to stay. So they're still going to increase the prices based on the incessant devaluation of the naira through dollarization.
Well, but some Nigerians ask the question, why is it that the pump price of Nigeria now is benchmarked by the international spot price and market forces? What do we need to do to free Nigeria from this trap? Because as it is, if spot price of crude continues to go up, then of course we could wake up one day and we would be asked to pay 500 naira per liter.
Knows what to do, but consistently the government has refused to listen to people. What the government announced last year was that we're going to switch from PMS to CNG, that is compressed natural gas, whose price will not be more than 90 naira. That was the announcement of the government. And many countries, including India, even Cote d'Ivoire here, have switched to CNG so that the number of vehicles using PMS will be substantially reduced. Again, the central bank pumped out about 250 billion naira for the construction of CNG all over the country. Again, we haven't had anything from that. Now the government claims that the fuel is being smuggled outside Nigeria, whereas our own internal consumption is supposed to be about 40 million barrels, liters per day. It is now said to be about 60 million liters per day because of smuggling. Again, we have told them, you can combat smuggling, you can stop smuggling tomorrow, but the government is not prepared to do that. How? We are being told that fuel is smuggled to neighboring countries like Benin, Togo, Ghana, and the rest of them. And we have simply suggested, go and build mega stations in those countries so that you can regulate the pricing that fuel is sold in those countries and make it impossible for smugglers to operate. After all, we have a ban for country, non-member states of the ECOWAS. Again, the government said this is a good idea. There was even the time I traveled to attend a meeting, of West African Bar Association in Benin Republic, and I think the president was in there. I met the Prime Minister, and we discussed this suggestion, and he jumped at it, and that the government will love it, because if you are selling fuel directly to motorists in Togo, in Ghana, in Benin Republic, the governments of those countries will collect tax. Your country will collect the cost of it. And at the end of the day, smugglers will be rendered totally useless. And we know smuggling any longer. But our government is not prepared to embrace these alternatives. The other one is don't import things you are unable to fix your refinery. Don't import fuel, refined fuel from Europe and America, because it's very expensive. There are West African countries, there are African countries that have the capacity to refine fuel. Simply engage in trade by barter. Give them fuel and ask them to refine what you will need locally for you. The government again is not prepared. I was the one that suggested to the government about 7 years ago, go to Cote d'Ivoire. Today, we are refining about 50,000 barrels per day from Cote d'Ivoire. We also have them go to Niger. We are refining some from Niger. So there are still countries like Chad and others, Senegal and others that can refine petroleum products for us. But the government profits from smuggling. There is a cabal that lives on smuggling. And for that reason, they make it impossible for the refineries to function. They also make it impossible for Nigeria to sell petroleum products directly, or fuel, crude oil, directly to our neighboring country. And this is why we're in this mess. And like you said, if Nigeria do not resist, very soon, the price of petroleum product, you are going to be told that a liter of fuel in Nigeria will be about 500 naira. But I can assure you, that will not happen. I can assure you.
Well, quickly, let's talk about organized labor in Nigeria. This week, on Tuesday, members of the NLC and TUC and other associated bodies staged protests across the country over the proposal by a member of the House of Representatives that the national minimum wage should be moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. Their position is that the national minimum wage is determined by international law, by ILO regulation. But the House of Reps, the gentleman who moved the motion, and the House of Reps that supported that motion, seem to have been of the view that perhaps the best way to resolve the problem of non-payment of salaries, of crises over the minimum wage is just to put it under the concurrent list. What do you think?
By virtue of the provision of the Constitution, Section 16, there shall be in Nigeria a living national minimum wage. And it was on that basis that since 1991, we have always had a national minimum wage in Nigeria. And by the way, for those who are talking about federalism, those who are justifying the starvation wage they are calling for, and that's what I call it, liberalization of minimum wage. Some of them claim to be federal. Again, the first minimum wage in Nigeria was introduced by the leading federalists in the country, and that is the late Chief Abati. And the whole idea is this: if you liberalize minimum wage, people are going to be paid starvation wages or slave wages, and that is why every country, modern state, will have a minimum wage. Components of the country, just take the US for instance.
Hello, Mr. Falana. Hello.
The first bill that I'm saying that the first bill that President Biden sent to the US, to the Congress, was the national minimum wage, to increase it from $7.50 to $15 per hour. Not less than 28 states in America pay higher. So what we are saying in the case of Nigeria, there will be the unity, and then you can then have state governments like Rivers, Lagos, and others pay higher than the national minimum wage. So there's not incongruent, it is not inconsistent with the principle of federalism to fix a national minimum. And by the way, Reuben, how come that those who are talking of national, saying that they want to liberalize minimum wage, how come that they are taking the same salary and allowances? Why is House Rep member from Kano or Lagos, Rivers, and the same salary and allowances? Why is it that they are not also asking that the Constitution be amended to take the power from the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission from fixing the salaries and allowances of governors? Even allowances and salaries of local government are fixed by the Revenue Mobilization Commission. But these guys are not talking about that. It is part of the war against the people. We are increasing fuel price, we are increasing electricity tariffs, we want to also reduce minimum wage payable to workers. But I can say this, to be honest with you, take any state. There is no state in Nigeria that cannot pay the minimum wage of 5,000 naira. It is a question of prioritizing your question of priority.
Well, Mr. Falana, thank you for those insights, but we'll quickly take a commercial break, and when we're done with that, we'll be back to you. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Welcome back to City Talks with Reuben Abati on your favorite station, City 1051 FM. And our guest is still Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can call us on 0700-1051-1051 or leave comments on WhatsApp 090-916-4403 and on our social media accounts at City1051 on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. Mr. Femi Falana is still with us. Mr. Falana, thank you for your patience. We had to take that message from our sponsors. Very quickly, let's discuss security. Security. Not too long ago, the president said anybody that is found with an AK-47 should be shot on sight. Now, is that a good way of resolving the problem? And also in Zamfara, a no-fly zone has been declared over that part of the country by the president of Nigeria. Shoot on sight. Isn't that something that can be abused and result in extrajudicial killing?
Well, it is extremely barbaric for a civilian government to embark or to endorse extrajudicial killings or instant execution, illegal execution of citizens. Every criminal suspect is presumed innocent until the contrary is proved. And as far as the Firearms Act is concerned, those who are caught with AK-47 without license are required to be arrested and prosecuted under the law. If they are found guilty, they are either jail or be asked to pay fine. And I've said it publicly, unless the law is amended, the announcement credited to the president is clearly illegal. In fact, to constitutionalism. With respect to the zone imposed on Zamfara State, it's rather laughable because Zamfara State has no airport. And if you are talking of criminals dropping arms and ammunition by flying there, by flying helicopters, what do you say of Katsina, Kaduna, Borno, and other states where bandits are also operating, where terrorists are also operating? So I think the government will have to go back to the drawing table and fine-tune strategies in waging the counter-insurgency operations or the war against bandits in the play. But I think some of these announcements are knee-jerk reactions that have nothing to do with resolving the problem. As you can see, still on a daily basis, I think the latest about 30 have just been kidnapped in Kaduna State. State has lost control of this architecture of the government to bandits and other nihilist forces. So it will require much more than just making an announcement. Didn't the president say that the last abduction of gas in Zamfara was going to be the last one? But since then, it has been a daily affair because the questions are not being addressed. The right questions are not being addressed. For instance, out of the 36 states in Nigeria, 11, including Zamfara, have refused to adopt the child's rights law that requires every child to be in school and be educated free by the government from primary to junior secondary school. Governors and leaders in the north who are educating their own children in private schools at home and abroad will tell you, oh, it's against the Islamic religion to allow to ban child marriage, whereas even Saudi Arabia has just imposed a ban on child marriage. You have people here who use religion to keep our people underdeveloped, to keep illiteracy in the country, who use religion to prevent any form of family planning. So you have the poor having 50, 30 children whose income cannot, accommodate. So these are the problems we're having. What we are seeing in the north is a tip of the iceberg. But to talk of the north alone will not be correct. You talk of the northwest, banditry, you talk of northeast, terrorism, you talk of the south, you have kidnapping all over the place. And unless we go back to constitutionalism, and I have said it publicly, whereas Section 14 of the Constitution prescribes that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. If people have no jobs, the Constitution requires that you give them unemployment benefits. If people are sick, they are to be taken care of, particularly vulnerable, by the government. But what do you have in our country? The government increasingly pauperizing our people, promoting poverty. And of course, you cannot but have crimes where young men and women have gone to school and they come out of school, they have nothing to do. There is no amount of preaching, there's no amount of threat by the president that can really address this problem. So I would love to say, because again, mind the statement of the president. You must be very careful. What the president said is that those who are in the bushes, who are armed with AK-47, should be shot on sight. That is not a problem because those elements have declared a war on, including children. But nobody has said anything with respect to those who are armed with AK-47 and other dangerous weapons in all the states of the Federation. And what is more, by virtue of Section 35, the president, on a very serious note, I'm not sure the president meant I'm not sure the president really meant yet. The president has not decided to address this problem because by virtue of Section 35 of the Firearms Act, the president shall make a proclamation. There shall be a proclamation signed by the president authorizing security people in the country to disarm and bring to book all those who are moving around with dangerous weapons. But what are you told? Oh, the minister said this, and I think the minister of information. Oh, these arms are coming from West African countries because of ECOWAS protocol on free movement. You cannot stop them. Hey, that is not correct. By virtue of Article 4 of the protocol on movement of persons, resident and establishment, every state, every member state of ECOWAS is empowered to refuse entry into his state, into his territory by anybody who is bringing dangerous weapons or who has not followed the law. Furthermore, Section 20 of the Diseases Act empowers the Minister of Agriculture not to allow any animal to be brought to the country without evidence that the animal is free to enter Nigeria. That is not bringing diseases to Nigeria. But what has happened? The customs officials, the immigration officials turn the other eye when people are coming from neighboring countries. But the president can decide today through a proclamation. Nobody shall come from any neighboring state with arms. Nobody shall come with animals that have not been tested by our veterinary people, and that is what the law says. Nobody shall be allowed to move around in the country with AK-47 or another dangerous weapon, and the penalties to be meted out to them stipulated. Just like the case of COVID-19 regulation, when the government first announced regulations, I had to inform the president. To remind the president, you are supposed to issue an executive order or regulation under the law, quarantine, and that was what we done. So this has to be done this time. There must be a proclamation. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Falana, we already have some comments and reactions. Uche Nwora sent a direct message saying Ibori loot should be returned to Delta State with a mechanism to tie the release of funds to projects in the state that will benefit the people. That's from Uche Nwora. Fuluke Ademokun says, thank you for mentioning the violation of child rights. Those are two reactions there. Then Uche Nwora again says security will improve significantly if we have state police. State-controlled policing will allow for security at local government and state levels. Strangers or terrorists cannot settle in bushes within a community without a local government security and state police dealing with it. We also try to take some calls. If you are with us, the number is 0700-1051-1051. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Hey, good morning. Dr.
Yes,
Reuben, good afternoon.
on the
Mr. Falana, if you would just hold on, let's take this caller who is on the line right now, and after that, I'll come back to you. Yes, please.
You have a Shikila calling from Norway. I greet the senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Falana. He has done well, and I really appreciate him. I'm proud of him. Number one, my intervention is in the area of the PPRA, first of all. I think it's a disgrace after 6 years of this administration. We don't still have a working refinery Nigeria can post up instead of depending on refineries to be built by another individual. That's one. Because Baita is a senior lawyer, I would like to restrict other questions to questions that have a lot of things to do with the law. Number one is in the area of the corruption. Who can actually order or direct the EFCC chairman to do what? For instance, Professor Esefage, about a week or two and a half a week ago now, was talking about upon the emergence of the Abrashid Bawa, the EFCC board, that the Minister of Attorney General Melami would have some negative impact on his job. that they have been hindering their job, even at the ICPC, and so can also be done in the EFC. That's number one. Number two, a case concerning the former governor of Zamfara, that is Governor Yari now, about how 700 million naira was frozen from him and confiscated by the government.
Well, you have to keep your questions short so that we can give other people an opportunity. But back to you, Mr. Falana.
Well, the last question, please. I think it's on Governor Yari. Yeah. Now, first of all, the Ibori loot we are talking about, what is going to come to the country is about 120.
Hello, Mr. Falana, are you still with me?
Million pounds. Hello?
Okay,
Reuben?
I can hear you now. I can hear you.
Yeah. What we're expecting from London is about 120 million pounds, and that is over 50 billion naira. And it will not be fair on the part of the federal government to corner such fund without a pronouncement of the law. So I expect the Delta State government and the people to ensure that this problem is resolved, one way or the other as soon as possible. On child's right law, even the states that have enacted the child's right law or child right law are not, respecting them in the sense that we have street beggars, children who are street beggars all over the state, including Lagos. So we must all agree that we need to put every child in school in our country. On local government and state police, I have no problem with local government police once we can ensure that the control is vested in the people. We must not transfer the oppression with the federal police to state police and local government police. But in the interim, let us all appeal to our governors to take security much more seriously. Right now, the Constitution has provided for regular meetings of the Nigerian Police Council. That council is chaired by the president. Governors are members, but that body never meets. So you expect that body to meet regularly, like the Security Council chaired by the president. On refineries, the government has been deceiving the Nigerian people. Whereas the refineries are not working, millions of dollars are sunk every year to what they call maintenance, turnaround maintenance. And for me, if an individual like Dangote can walk to the bank and take a loan to build a refinery that will be a factory that will be refining about 600,000 barrels per day, how can a government say that it cannot build a refinery or fix our existing refineries? So the government is deceiving the Nigerian people. On corruption, again, we must be honest with ourselves. Apart from the federal government, apart from the EFCC and the ICPC, no state government in Nigeria is fighting corruption. Yet, corruption is a national phenomenon. Apart from Kano State, that has an anti-corruption agency set up by law, and I think Oyo State now, no other state, including the APC states, have ever set up anti-corruption agencies. So corruption is normal in the state, and that is the point I'm making. If you block the leakages, if you stop the waste, such as where a governor is moving and about 20 or 50 vehicles are following him, so you can have money to pay minimum wage. And if you want to fight corruption, it's not the way it is being fought by the government now. By taking control of the banks, the government can fight corruption much more seriously. Because apart from a few people who have security people to guide their homes, everybody takes his or her money to the bank. So if you monitor the banks to find out what is going in and out, you can checkmate, you can reduce corruption. And also, you have to make the office of the Auditor General independent, autonomous, and allow and ensure that the findings of the Auditor General are implemented. But that is not going on right now. These are the reasons why we have corruption, ascendancy of corruption under the Buhari regime that claims, or that are promised to fight corruption to stand still. But right now, corruption is on the increase in our country.
Well, quickly, I have another question here, Mr. Falana, from Yemi Adeogun from the UK. He says, with the current state of security in Nigeria, does Mr. Falana see this country remaining one in the nearest future with all these problems the country is battling with?
Well, it's for Nigerians to determine whether this country will remain one. But as I said, the Buhari regime has lost control of the security of the country. In fact, armed robbers, terrorists, bandits, all of them have taken control of the violence. They have taken monopoly of violence. And when that happens in a country, that country is failing. Nigeria may eventually grind to a halt. And I think it is at that stage that it's likely to be to the intent, Israel. But the government still has the opportunity now to halt the inexorable, case, imminent collapse of the country. And of course, Nigerian people have to rise up very soon to force the government to address the challenge of insecurity. I was just reading now that the United States government is saying, we are ready to assist if you are willing to allow us to assist you. I'm sure you can recall that when an American was kidnapped very recently in Niger State, the American government sent troops to Niger State, and they were able to free their abducted citizens and then kill two of the abductors. So our country has the resources to acquire necessary gadgets to stop the disgraceful and the shameful abduction of people in our country, to stop our soldiers, our armed forces have done us proud, going to many countries in the world, participating in United Nations peacekeeping operations. But because the money earmarked for the procurement of arms and ammunition is criminally diverted by a coterie of army generals all the time, and this is why we are in this problem. I have defended soldiers who were charged with mutiny for asking for weapons to fight. So I know what I'm talking about. Our armed forces, members of armed forces are not motivated. They are not paid their salaries and allowances on time. And that is why, and because they are not properly armed, sometimes they run when Boko Haram boys, invade their territory. That's why we're in a mess.
Well, we'll take a phone call. If there is any caller on the line, we'll take that very quickly. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, yes, good morning.
Yes,
good afternoon. Right.
Good afternoon, doctor. Good afternoon, Falana.
Please go ahead and please keep it brief. Hello? Hello?
Hello, Dr. Reuben Abati. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead with your question and please keep it very brief because we're almost out of time.
Yeah, from Congo. I want to really appreciate Falana for a job well done for working on behalf of the masses and keeping the government on its toes. We want to appreciate him that God will continue. Bless him abundantly in our nation in Jesus' name. More grace to everyone, sir. God bless you.
Well, thank you very much. Well, this is another question, Mr. Falana, from Omolewa. She's asking how... Hello?
I didn't hear the first question.
Well, the gentleman was commending you, basically.
Oh, thank you.
But I have another question here from Omolewa. And she is asking, how will you advise state governments to approach the problem of insecurity in their states? Now that we don't have state police, and the state governors say they are just chief security officers merely in name, We have all these alternative security networks. The Eastern Security Network in the east, the Amotekun in the southwest. Now, those efforts also do not seem to be working. So, what exactly can they do as state governors?
No, please don't believe any governor who says that is not a true chief security officer of his state. Every state in Nigeria has a security council headed by the governor. The commissioner of police is a member. The army commander or the military commander is a member. The director of state security service is a member. And they meet regularly to discuss the security of the state. When it comes to harassing political opponents, our governors have no problem. But when it comes to securing all of us, that is where the problems come in. Up till now, governors take security vote in Nigeria, running to sometimes over $1 billion. Some state governors take over $1 billion security vote per month. Others about 600 million and the rest of them. If our governors spend 50% of security vote to secure our people, to acquire the necessary gadgets and equipment for our policemen and women, we will not be in this mess. I have just told you that our country is supposed to have a functional Nigerian Police Council. I expect that the governors and the president should be meeting once a month or at least once in a fortnight to discuss the security of Nigeria. Since 1999, there is no governor who has ever said, oh, in a place like Lagos, oh, there is a crisis in Ikorodu. I asked the commissioner of police to go there and deal with the situation. And the commissioner of police has said, no, I won't go there. If any commissioner does that under the constitution, he will be fired. And what have I done? For those networks, they are not going to work. They cannot work because the governors have refused to listen to us. I have said, you can't have an Amotekun, empty-handed to confront people who are armed to the teeth. It's stupid. In fact, it's suicidal. And what have we suggested? If Reuben, of course, they won't give me a gun. Reuben Abati can go to the IG. I need a gun to protect my family members. And he will be granted the license because he will be considered a responsible citizen. And I have suggested to our government, what stops you? Say in Lagos, ask the police or the president, we have 10,000 young men and women in neighborhood watch. We want to arm them so that they can protect 20 million people. And I have offered my services. If the federal government says no, let me know. I will go to court and challenge such a refusal because it's discriminatory. It's also a threat to the lives of all of us. So if you can give guns to 100 people to protect themselves and their family members, why will you not give guns to 10,000 people to protect the rest of us? So our governors have to be more proactive in discussing security of our people because that is the primary responsibility of the government. So you can't as a state, you cannot as a state say you are not in control of law and order in your state. And by the way, over 98% of cases in Nigeria are state offenses. Armed robbery, banditry, all of them as murder, as state offenses. Why is it that police parade dangerous criminal elements all the time and our state government do not bother whether they are prosecuted or not? Please, let no governor tell you that's not in charge of security of his state. It's not true. They are in charge.
Well, Mr. Falana, on that, Foluke sent in a message asking, can state governors give orders to the commissioners of police in their states? But before I come back to you, we'll take this commercial advert.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Welcome back to City Talks with Reuben Abati here on City 1051 FM. Before we went on break, there was a response to your statements about the powers of the governors, Mr. Falana. Maybe you want to deal with that quickly.
Well, what governors do every day is to give orders to the commissioner of police. And I have told you, there has been no legal order given to a commissioner of police in Nigeria with respect to combating criminality, that the commissioner of police has said, no, I won't do it. Where a commissioner of police might tell the governor, you see, if the governor of Lagos State, for instance, asked the commissioner of police to go and arrest Mr. Falana, who may not have committed an offense, the commissioner has the right to say, sorry, sir, I won't do that. But if it's about combating robbery, or banditry, no commissioner of police has ever said no, because there is a Supreme Court judgment on this. AG Anambra State and AG of the Federation, even when President Obasanjo didn't want to engage, the Supreme Court held that the commissioner of police in that state must comply with all directives of the governor when it comes to do with security. I also can tell you this, I handle a case, AMPP and IGP, where the Court of Appeal said the name of the IG is not even mentioned in the Public Order Act. Therefore, it is the business of governors to determine public meetings in their state. But what has happened? Our governors have abdicated their total responsibility, told the army and the police to control crowd, to control meetings. You even have a dangerous situation now where governors are inviting soldiers to go and stop demonstration by peaceful, protesters. Again, this is a subversion of federalism. The point I'm making therefore is that our governors can give orders to the commissioner of police, and this is done daily, and the orders are obeyed.
Well, on this note, Mr. Femi Falana, we just have to thank you. I see that there are many persons who have their hands up on Zoom there. I can see Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi, and I can also see Kuma Deb. They all have questions for you, and here the dashboard, the buttons are flashing endlessly. But we just have to call it a day, and thank you very much, Mr. Falana, SAN, for taking time out to discuss these various national issues with us and our listeners. And many thanks to everyone who joined us in this conversation and those who reach out to us, particularly on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. But remember, the conversation does not end here. You can reach out to me on my social media account at Abati1990, both on Instagram and Twitter, and at City1051 on all social media platforms. For those of you who tuned in late, no need to worry. You can visit our YouTube page, City1051, to watch the entire show. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And don't forget also to tune in next week at noon for another exciting edition of City Talks. My name is Reuben Abati.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.